The night I knocked on my landlady's door, I was 1 week away from losing everything. I did not feel it when I lost my job at the restaurant 3 months earlier. I told myself it was temporary. I would find something else. I always did. I did not panic when my savings ran out 2 weeks later. I cut back. I skipped meals. I sold a few things. I told myself it was just a rough season. But when I opened that white envelope slipped under my apartment door and saw the words "Final Notice" printed in red across the top, something inside me cracked. 3 months of unpaid rent. 7 days to pay or leave. I sat on my old couch in my tiny apartment in Chicago and stared at the wall. The place was not much. 1 bedroom. A kitchen so small I had to step back to open the fridge all the way. Pipes that groaned every time I showered. But it was home. I had lived there for 2 years. It was the first place that felt like mine, and now I was about to lose it. My parents were in Ohio, barely getting by themselves. My friends had already helped me with groceries last month. I could not ask again. Pride is a heavy thing. It keeps you standing even when you are falling apart inside. That night, rain poured down so hard it shook the windows. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to it. I thought about sleeping in my car. I thought about packing everything into boxes and driving back home, admitting I had failed at building a life in the city. Every option felt like giving up. Then I thought about her, Vanessa Gray, my landlady. She lived in the penthouse on the top floor of the building. In 2 years, I had spoken to her maybe a handful of times. Quick hallway greetings. A polite nod. That was it, but she was impossible not to notice. Early 30s, auburn hair, green eyes that seemed to see more than they showed. She always looked put together, like she was walking into a business meeting, even when she was just checking the mail. Confident, calm, untouchable, way out of my league. Still, she was my only chance. Maybe if I explained everything. Maybe if I told her I was applying everywhere, that I just needed a few more weeks. Maybe she would give me time. Around 3 in the morning, I stopped pretending I would sleep. I got dressed. If I waited until morning, I might lose my nerve. The stairway was quiet, except for the rain hitting the windows at the end of each floor. Each step up felt heavier than the last. By the time I reached the 5th floor, my heart was pounding. Her door was different from the others. Solid wood. A small security camera above it. A sleek silver handle. Everything about it reminded me that she lived in a different world than I did. I stood there with my hand raised, frozen. This was insane. It was the middle of the night, but I kept seeing that red notice in my mind. 7 days. I knocked. At first, nothing happened. I almost turned around. Then I heard footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. Vanessa stood there in a soft gray sweater and black pants. Her hair was pulled back loosely. She did not look surprised. "You're from 3C," she said quietly. "James, right?" The fact that she knew my name caught me off guard. "Yeah, I'm sorry, I know it's late. She stepped back and opened the door wider. "Come in." "I can come back in the morning." "If you were going to come back in the morning, you wouldn't be here now," she said gently. Her apartment was nothing like mine. High ceilings, huge windows showing the city lights below, warm lamps instead of harsh overhead lights, books stacked on a coffee table, a half-finished mug of tea beside an open laptop. It felt lived in, not cold, not empty. She gestured to the couch. "Sit." I sat, suddenly aware of the tear in my jeans and the worn sleeves of my jacket. She sat across from me, crossing her legs, waiting calmly. I handed her the notice. "I know I'm behind. The restaurant closed down. I've been applying everywhere. I just need a little more time. A couple weeks, maybe a month. I swear I'll catch up." She read the paper and placed it on the table between us. 3 months is a long time to wait before talking to me," she said. "I thought I could fix it before it got this bad. And now it's this bad." "Yes." She leaned back, studying me with those sharp green eyes. I can't just ignore 3 months of unpaid rent, James. This building is my business. If I let one person slide, I open the door for everyone. My stomach dropped. So that's it? I asked quietly. You're saying no? I'm saying, she replied slowly, that there might be another option. Hope flickered in my chest. What kind of option? She hesitated like she was choosing her words carefully. I live alone up here. I work a lot. I don't have time for basic things. Grocery shopping. Cooking real meals. Keeping everything organized. I could hire someone, but I don't trust strangers in my home. I frowned slightly. Okay. You need time. I need help. She leaned forward. What if we make an arrangement? You help me with those things. In return, I forgive the back rent. We start fresh. It sounded unreal. Just errands and cooking? I asked. And company, she added softly. The word hung in the air. Company? I'm alone most of the time, she said. It would be nice to have someone to eat dinner with, to talk to, someone who isn't asking me for something. Quote. The room felt warmer suddenly. Nothing you're not comfortable with, she added quickly. Just your time, your presence. I swallowed. Why me? She gave a small smile. It changed her whole face. Because in 2 years, you've never complained about anything. You helped Mrs. Rodriguez with her laundry when she hurt her back. You fixed the loose railing on the 3rd floor without being asked. You're kind, James. No one had called me that in a long time. You noticed that? I noticed more than you think. I left her apartment that night with an agreement that felt almost unreal. No eviction, no debt. All I had to do was cook, run errands, and spend time with her. The next evening, she asked me to make dinner. I cooked chicken piccata with pasta. When she took the first bite, her eyes closed, and she smiled in a way that made my chest tighten. This is the best meal I've had in months, she said. We ate together at her dining table. We talked about my small hometown, her father who had left her the building, her long work days. My dream of opening my own restaurant one day. It felt easy, natural, like we had known each other longer than a few hours. When I left that night, she walked me to the door. Just before I stepped out, she reached out and touched my arm. Thank you, James, she said softly. Her fingers were warm. And for the first time in months, I did not feel like a failure. I felt wanted. But I had no idea that the simple knock on her door would change everything between us in ways I never expected. And I definitely did not know that the real cost of her offer had nothing to do with rent. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. For a few seconds, I forgot everything. The job loss, the notice, the deal. Then I remembered. Vanessa, her apartment, her offer. I checked my phone and saw her message from the night before. Breakfast at 7:30. I have an early meeting. It felt strange reading something so normal when my life had felt like it was falling apart just hours earlier. I got dressed carefully. I changed shirts twice before telling myself to calm down. This was not a date. This was an arrangement. I was basically her temporary assistant. Still, my heart was racing as I climbed the stairs. She opened the door before I knocked. This time her hair was down, falling softly around her shoulders. She wore dark jeans and a simple white shirt. No heavy makeup, no sharp business look, just her. Good morning, she said with a small smile. Morning. The kitchen smelled like fresh coffee. I moved around her space carefully at first, afraid to touch anything wrong. But she stood beside me, explaining where things were. She was organized, but not strict. Once I understood her system, everything made sense. As I cooked eggs and toast with roasted tomatoes, she sat at the counter watching me. You look different in here, she said suddenly. I glanced at her. Different how? Confident. I let out a quiet laugh. I'm not confident. You are when you cook. I did not know what to say to that. We ate together at the small dining table by the windows. The city below looked calm in the early light. She asked about my job search. I told her about all the places I had applied. She listened like it mattered. Not like small talk, like it actually mattered. Over the next 2 weeks, a pattern formed. I came up every morning to make breakfast. Some evenings I cooked dinner. I handled grocery runs, dry cleaning, small repairs, simple things. But it was never just about tasks. It was about sitting across from her at the table. It was about the way she asked real questions and waited for real answers. It was about how she would kick off her heels the second she walked through the door and sigh like she could finally breathe. One night after dinner, we stayed at the table long after our plates were empty. "Do you ever regret leaving home?" she asked. "All the time," I admitted. "But if I went back, I'd regret that too." She nodded slowly. "I get that." "What about you?" I asked. "Do you ever regret taking over the building?" She leaned back in her chair. "Sometimes. It's a lot of pressure. Everyone expects me to be strong all the time. Responsible. Perfect. You are strong." Her eyes softened. "That doesn't mean I'm not tired." Quote, "That was the first time I saw something vulnerable in her. Not the confident landlady, not the sharp businesswoman, just a woman who felt alone." After that night, things shifted. The air between us felt different, charged. Sometimes our hands brushed when I passed her a plate. Sometimes she would stand closer than necessary when I showed her something in the kitchen. Neither of us said anything about it, but we both felt it. One Friday evening, while I was washing dishes, my phone rang. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. It was a restaurant downtown. One I had applied to weeks earlier. They wanted to interview me Monday morning. I stood there gripping the phone like it might disappear. "Everything okay?" Vanessa asked from the couch. I turned toward her. "I got an interview." Her face lit up instantly. "James, that's amazing. If I get it, I can start paying rent again. I won't need this arrangement anymore." The words felt right, responsible, grown up. But as soon as I said them, I noticed something shift in her expression. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "That's good," she said softly. "That's really good." That night felt different, quieter. When I left, she did not touch my arm like she usually did. She just stood at the door and said, "Good luck Monday." The interview went better than I expected. The head chef liked my experience and offered me the job on the spot. I should have felt unstoppable. Instead, all I could think about was Vanessa. What happened now? If I started paying rent again, would I stop coming upstairs every day? Would we go back to hallway nods and polite smiles? That evening, when I got home, there was a note under my door. "Can we talk tonight?" Around 8. V. My chest tightened. At exactly 8, I went upstairs. She opened the door slowly this time, no smile. "Come in." She had changed into comfortable clothes, but she looked tense. Her fingers kept twisting together like she was nervous. "How was the interview?" she asked. "I got the job." "That's wonderful." Silence filled the space between us. Finally, she took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something." Quote, my heart started pounding. "This arrangement," she said carefully, "it was never just about groceries and cooking." I swallowed. "What do you mean?" She walked toward the window, staring out at the city lights. "I noticed you long before you knocked on my door. The way you helped people in the building. The way you never complained. The way you looked lonely." She turned to face me. "When you showed up that night asking for more time, I already knew I was going to help you. I just needed a reason to have you around." My breath caught. "You created this just to spend time with me?" "I needed help," she said quickly. "That part was real, but yes. I wanted you here." I stepped closer without thinking. "Why didn't you just ask me to dinner?" A small, sad laugh escaped her. "Because you were my tenant. Because you were struggling. I didn't want you to think I was using your situation." "So instead, you made it professional." "Yes." The room felt too small suddenly. "And now you're getting a job," she continued, "which is good. It's what you need. But it means this ends." "Does it?" Quote. She looked at me like she was afraid of the answer. "It should," she whispered. "Do you want it to?" Silence. Her eyes were shining now. "I don't know what's smart," she admitted, "but I know that these past weeks have been the best part of my day." My heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. Mine too. We were standing only inches apart now. I don't think what I feel is just because of the arrangement, I said quietly. And I don't think you do either. Her breath trembled. This is complicated, James. I know. I'm your landlady, and I'm not asking for free rent anymore. She searched my face like she was trying to see if I understood the weight of it. If we cross this line, she said softly, there's no going back. I took another step closer. Maybe I don't want to go back. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she reached up slowly and touched my face. Her fingers were warm. And when she leaned in, I knew everything was about to change, in a way neither of us could control. When her lips touched mine, it felt like something that had been building for weeks finally broke free. It was not rushed, not wild. It was careful at first, almost hesitant. Like we were both asking a silent question. Then she moved closer, and the hesitation disappeared. Her fingers slid into my hair. My hands found her waist. The kiss deepened in a way that made my chest ache. I had imagined this moment more than once, but the reality was stronger, warmer, real. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. This is a mistake, she whispered, even though she was still holding on to me. Then why does it feel right? I asked. She did not answer that. Instead, she rested her forehead against mine. We have to be careful, she said softly. You're still my tenant. Not for long. I start the new job Monday. That doesn't change the power dynamic overnight. Her words were practical, but her hands were still gripping my shirt. I understood what she meant. The building had rules. The board watched everything. Vanessa had told me once how strict they were about ethics and boundaries. Then we take it slow, I said. We don't announce anything. We figure it out. She looked up at me, searching my face. You're not just saying that because you feel grateful to me, right? The question stung a little. I'm saying it because I think about you all the time, I answered honestly. Because the best part of my day is coming upstairs. Because when I got that job, I was happy, but I was scared it meant losing this. Her expression softened. I was scared too, she admitted. That night, we did not go further than that first kiss. We sat on the couch talking until after midnight. About what this could mean, about how we would handle it, about how careful we had to be. When I left, she kissed me again at the door. Text me when you get downstairs, she said quietly. I smiled. Yes, ma'am. She rolled her eyes. Don't call me that. The next few days felt unreal. We acted normal in public, just landlord and tenant, polite smiles in the hallway if someone was around. But when the door to her penthouse closed, everything changed. We cooked together instead of just me cooking for her. She would stand behind me at the stove, her arms sliding around my waist, her chin resting on my shoulder. Simple touches that sent warmth through my whole body. We talked about things we had not dared to before. Her fears about running the building alone, my fear of failing again. The more we opened up, the deeper it felt. Monday came fast. I started my new job at a restaurant in downtown Chicago. The kitchen was loud and fast. The hours were long. My feet ached by the end of the shift, but I loved it. When I finished my first day, exhausted and smelling like garlic and smoke, I went straight upstairs. She opened the door and pulled me into a hug before I could even speak. How was it? She asked against my chest. Crazy. Perfect. She smiled up at me like she was proud. That night we celebrated with takeout for once. We sat on the floor by the windows with cartons spread around us, laughing about my kitchen mistakes and her long meetings. For the first time in months, I felt like my life was moving forward instead of falling apart. Then everything cracked. It happened 3 days later. I was coming back from work when I noticed 2 tenants whispering in the lobby. They stopped when they saw me. Their eyes followed me all the way to the stairs. Something about the look made my stomach tighten. At the top of the second floor, Mr. Peterson from 4A stopped me. There's a building meeting tomorrow night, he said. Mandatory. What about? He hesitated. You should talk to Vanessa. Cold spread through my chest. I did not even go to my apartment. I went straight to the penthouse. She opened the door before I knocked. Her face was pale. "You heard," she said. "What's going on?" She stepped aside and closed the door behind me. Someone reported us. My heart dropped. Reported us how? They noticed how often you've been up here, how late you leave. She ran a hand through her hair, pacing now. Eleanor Chun called me this afternoon. I knew the name. Head of the building board. Sharp. Ambitious. Always watching. She's calling an emergency ethics meeting, Vanessa continued, claiming there's an inappropriate relationship between landlord and tenant. My chest felt tight. We didn't do anything wrong. It doesn't matter. The bylaws are strict. They exist to prevent abuse of power. Even if everything is mutual, it can still be seen as coercion. That's insane, I said. We're both adults. She stopped pacing and looked at me. If they decide I violated policy, they can force penalties, fines, oversight. They could even push for me to sell. The words hit like a punch. Sell the building? She inherited this from my father. It's my main asset. My entire career is built around it. Silence filled the room. So, what are you saying? I asked quietly. Her eyes filled with something I did not want to see. I'm saying we might have to end this. The words felt like the floor disappearing under my feet. Just like that? It's not just like that, she said, her voice breaking. I care about you, you know I do, but I can't risk losing everything. Quote. And what about us? I asked. I don't know how to protect both. The next night, the community room was packed. Every tenant sat in folding chairs facing the front. Vanessa stood near the table, composed but tense. Eleanor Chun stood beside her with a folder full of papers. Eleanor spoke first. She listed dates, times, witness statements about how often I had been seen going upstairs. She framed it like something ugly, like Vanessa had taken advantage of me. I wanted to stand up and shout that it was not like that. When it was Vanessa's turn to speak, she looked straight ahead. I understand the concerns, she said calmly, and I take them seriously. Her eyes flickered toward me for half a second, but I want to clarify something. There has been no abuse of power, no manipulation. Eleanor interrupted sharply. The relationship itself is the problem. Vanessa's jaw tightened. If that is the case, she said slowly, then perhaps the structure is what needs to change. The room grew quiet. What does that mean? Eleanor asked. Vanessa inhaled. It means that as of this morning, James is no longer my tenant. My heart skipped. Murmurs spread across the room. I transferred ownership of Unit 3C to him, she continued. The paperwork has been filed. He now owns his apartment outright. The room exploded with shocked whispers. I stared at her, stunned. What had she just done? Eleanor's face turned red. You can't just give away property to avoid scrutiny. I can, Vanessa said firmly. There is no longer a landlord-tenant relationship. Therefore, there is no violation. The meeting dissolved into chaos. I barely heard the rest. All I could think about was what she had sacrificed. When it ended, I found her in the hallway. You gave me my apartment? I asked. She looked tired but steady. I gave you independence, she said softly. Vanessa, that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. I know. Why would you do that? She stepped closer. Because I refuse to let anyone say you're with me because you need something from me, and I refuse to let them use you against me. My throat tightened. You didn't have to risk everything. Yes, I did, she said, because I love you. The world seemed to stop for a second. You love me? I have for weeks, she whispered. Maybe since that rainy night you knocked on my door looking like you were trying not to fall apart. Emotion flooded my chest so fast I could barely breathe. I love you too, I said. And in that moment, standing in a quiet hallway after chaos, I believed we had won. I did not know yet that the board was not finished, and that loving each other was about to cost even more than we expected. The next morning, I woke up in my apartment that I now legally owned, and for a moment, I forgot how we got there. Then it all rushed back. The meeting, the shock on everyone's faces. Vanessa standing tall while the room turned against her, the words "I love you" still echoing in my ears. I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the wall. She had given me my home. Not rented it, given it. I grabbed my phone and saw a message from her. "Come upstairs when you wake up. We need to talk about next steps." My chest tightened again. When I reached the penthouse, she opened the door slowly. She looked exhausted. Not physically, but emotionally. Like she had carried something heavy for too long. "You didn't have to do that," I said the second I stepped inside. "Yes, I did," she replied gently. "Eleanor would have torn you apart. She was building a case that I was exploiting you. I couldn't let that stand. But you risked everything." She gave a tired smile. "I'm done living scared." We sat at her dining table, the same place where this whole thing had started, with chicken piccata and nervous smiles. "My lawyer called this morning," she said. "Eleanor is furious. She's claiming I manipulated assets to protect myself. Can she undo it?" Quote, "No, the transfer is legal, clean, final." She paused. "But she's pushing for a full review of my management practices." That meant stress, lawyers, audits, endless meetings, all because she chose me. "You shouldn't have to fight like this," I said quietly. She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm not fighting because of you," she said. "I'm fighting because I refuse to let someone bully me out of my own life." For the next few weeks, things were tense. Eleanor pushed hard. There were emails, formal letters, demands for documentation, rumors spreading through the building like smoke. Some tenants avoided us, others whispered. But something unexpected also happened. Mrs. Rodriguez knocked on my door one evening with a plate of homemade empanadas. "I think it's romantic," she said with a wink. "Don't let bitter people ruin it." Mr. Peterson stopped me in the hallway and muttered, "For what it's worth, you two look happy." Slowly, the storm started to lose strength. The lawyers confirmed there had been no violation. The transfer was within Vanessa's rights as owner. There was no financial coercion, no abuse. Eleanor had nothing solid. After a final tense board meeting, the investigation was officially closed. Vanessa walked out of that room looking 10 pounds lighter. When she stepped into the hallway and saw me waiting, she smiled in a way that made my chest ache. "It's over," she said. I pulled her into my arms right there, not caring who saw. "You're incredible," I whispered. "No," she said softly against my shoulder. "We are." Life began to settle. I threw myself into my new job. The head chef started trusting me with more responsibility. He let me create specials once a week. For the first time, I felt like my dream of owning a restaurant might actually be possible. Vanessa hired a professional property manager to handle daily building issues. It gave her space to breathe, to step back from constant stress. And we stopped hiding. We had dinner in public restaurants. We held hands in the elevator. We showed up together at building gatherings without apology. There were still looks sometimes, but we stopped shrinking under them. 3 months later, Vanessa suggested we take a weekend trip upstate to a small cabin her father had owned. "It's quiet," she said. "No board members, no gossip, just us." The cabin sat beside a calm lake, surrounded by trees turning gold and red with fall. The first night we built a fire and sat wrapped in blankets on the dock. The air was cool. The stars were sharp and clear above us. "This is where my dad used to bring me when I felt overwhelmed," she said softly. "You feel overwhelmed now?" She leaned into me. "Not overwhelmed, just aware of how much I almost lost." I tightened my arm around her shoulders. "You didn't lose anything. I almost lost you before we even started." Silence settled between us, peaceful this time. After a few minutes, she shifted and reached into her jacket pocket. "I have something for you," she said. My heart started racing again. She handed me a small silver key. "What's this?" Quote, "The penthouse," she said quietly. "Move in with me." I stared at the key resting in my palm. "You're serious?" "I hate going to sleep without you. I hate waking up and waiting to see you. I don't want separate lives in the same building." I swallowed hard. "Are you sure?" Quote. She looked at me with steady green eyes. "I've never been more sure of anything." Emotion filled my chest so fast it almost hurt. "Yes," I said. "Of course." We moved my things upstairs over the next few weeks. It did not take long. I did not own much, but every box I carried up those stairs felt like building something real. Our space slowly became ours. My knives in her kitchen, my books on her shelves, her laughter-filling rooms that used to feel too quiet. 6 months later, on the exact anniversary of the night I knocked on her door, I came home from work to find candles glowing across the penthouse. She stood by the windows in a dark red dress, city lights behind her. "What's all this?" I asked. "Our anniversary," she said softly. "1 year since you asked me for time." I laughed gently. "Best desperate decision of my life." She walked toward me, took my hands, and her expression turned serious. "I have something to ask you," she said. "And I need you to let me finish." My heart pounded. "This year changed everything for me," she continued. "You reminded me that life isn't just buildings and contracts. It's connection. It's love." She slowly knelt down, my breath caught. "James," she said, holding out a small ring, "will you marry me?" For a second, I could not speak. I thought about that rainy night. The red notice. The fear. The knock on her door. How I thought I was asking for time. How I ended up finding love. "Yes," I whispered, then louder. "Yes." She stood, and I pulled her into a kiss that felt like home. 6 months later, we stood on that same dock by the lake, surrounded by close friends and a few tenants who had become family. Mrs. Rodriguez cried through the entire ceremony. When Vanessa walked toward me in a simple white dress, I felt the same thing I had felt the first time she opened her door, like my life was about to change forever. But this time, it was not fear, it was certainty. I had knocked on her door asking for more time. Instead, she gave me a lifetime. And sometimes, when it rains hard against our penthouse windows, I think about that scared man standing in the hallway with eviction in his hand. If I could go back and talk to him, I would tell him this: sometimes the worst night of your life is just the beginning of the best one. All you have to do is knock.